The zoo was bustling with families enjoying a bright and sunny day full of laughter and joy. Animals roamed freely in their enclosures while keepers made sure everyone was safe and fed. Birds sang sweet songs high above as the warm sun cast golden rays across the park grounds. Unseen by most, the nearby volcano silently simmered, showing signs of unrest deep within. Scientists monitoring it noted small tremors that hinted at trouble just beneath the surface. Visitors remained unaware of the looming danger as they marveled at exotic creatures around. Suddenly the earth shook violently, causing panic and confusion among everyone present there. Ash began to fall like dark snow, and thick smoke spread quickly across the clear blue sky. Keepers scrambled to evacuate animals and guide visitors to safety amidst growing chaos. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more incredible true stories like this one. 1. The morning before disaster, the sun rose over the lush valley, casting golden light across the sleepy zoo grounds. Animals stirred in their enclosures, unaware of the danger sleeping beneath the nearby mountain. Caretakers went about feeding routines, smiling at the familiar sounds of morning in the wild. The volcano had been quiet for decades, its slopes now home to plants and roaming wildlife. Tourists began to arrive, excited to see rare animals and enjoy the scenic location. A few locals spoke of strange tremors felt during the night but were largely ignored. Birds took to the sky in sudden bursts, unsettling some of the visitors watching them closely. The air was warm, thicker than usual, but no one yet suspected the brewing catastrophe. Keepers checked water supplies, cleaned habitats, and prepared for a busy day ahead. The mountain loomed in the distance, its peak hidden by an unusual ring of mist. This calm morning would soon become a memory for those who lived through what came next. Deep underground, molten rock began to press upward, building deadly pressure. The animals sensed vibrations first, growing restless inside their enclosed spaces. Some predators paced rapidly, growling low as if warning of an unseen threat. Tourists admired their energy, unaware they were watching fear, not excitement. The first small tremor shook the zoo, knocking over a bucket in the elephant pen. A keeper laughed it off, joking about the ground dancing for the animals' joy. Yet far beneath their feet, the earth was splitting open in preparation for release. The zoo sat directly in the path of the ancient lava channels from past eruptions. 2. The first tremors felt. It began with a deep rumble that rolled through the valley like distant thunder. The glass in the reptile house rattled, startling the snakes and lizards inside. Elephants lifted their trunks, trumpeting loudly as if sounding an urgent alarm. Visitors glanced around, confused, but the staff assured them it was nothing serious. Monkeys clung to branches, staring toward the volcano with unblinking intensity. The ground vibrated underfoot, a subtle but unnerving reminder of nature's force. In the flamingo pond, ripples spread in perfect circles without any wind to cause them. A zookeeper radioed the office, reporting strange animal behavior across enclosures. The manager instructed everyone to remain calm and keep the zoo running as normal. The volcano's peak was now visible, the mist replaced by a growing column of smoke. Some guests took photos, believing it was a harmless display of volcanic beauty. Others felt uneasy, quietly edging toward the exits while still trying to stay calm. Inside the lion habitat, the big cats roared in unison, pacing along the fences. Seismic sensors in the region recorded increasing activity beneath the mountain. No official warnings had yet been issued, leaving the zoo in a dangerous state. A few employees whispered about evacuation but feared causing public panic. The rumbling grew louder, carrying with it a faint smell of sulfur in the air. A flock of birds took off from the forest, fleeing in a single frantic direction. The volcano had awakened, and the valley's window for safety was closing quickly. 3. Smoke over the mountain. Dark plumes began to rise from the volcano, twisting into the bright morning sky. From a distance, it looked almost beautiful, like clouds painted with shades of ash. Some visitors mistook it for a weather change, unaware it signaled something deadly. Inside the zoo, keepers grew more anxious as the animals became harder to manage. The elephants refused food, the gorillas pounded the ground, and parrots screamed non-stop. Tourists took selfies with the smoky backdrop, oblivious to the growing risk. In the parking lot, a few families quietly left, sensing danger before others did. Ash began to drift down lightly, dusting leaves and fur with a gray powder. It was fine and dry, clinging to skin and clothes, but not yet thick enough to obscure sight. The zoo's loudspeaker announced a temporary closure of certain animal exhibits. The volcano's rumbling deepened, a constant vibration that could be felt in the chest. Inside the aviary, Birds slammed against the mesh in desperate attempts to escape. Children pointed to the ashfall, calling it snow, while parents nervously glanced around. Zookeepers held emergency radios, waiting for evacuation orders that never came. A thin layer of ash now coated the zoo pathways, crunching softly underfoot. The smell of sulfur grew sharper, burning the throat with each breath. The mountain sides began to glow faintly as heat escaped from hidden vents. Nature was giving its warnings, but too many ignored them in hope of normalcy. The stage was set for the eruption that would change everything in minutes. 4. The eruption begins without warning. The volcano exploded in a deafening roar that shook the valley. A massive column of ash shot high into the atmosphere, blotting out the sun. The sky turned dark as if night had fallen in an instant, sending panic through the zoo. Animals screamed, roared, and fled to corners of their enclosures in pure terror. The blast wave shattered glass windows in the reptile and bird houses. Visitors dropped to the ground, covering their heads as debris rained from above. The sound was unlike anything anyone had heard, a constant thunder of destruction. A searing heat swept over the zoo, carried by the rushing volcanic gases. Ash fell thicker now, blinding eyes and choking lungs with each breath. Zookeepers shouted orders, trying to lead guests toward the main gates. The elephants trumpeted frantically, pressing against the barriers in fear. Monkeys shrieked, swinging wildly from ropes and bars to escape the chaos. A lava fountain began spilling from the volcano, bright orange against the darkness. The ground shook violently, knocking people to their knees. Fences bent and broke as some animals tried to break free in desperation. Tourists abandoned strollers, bags, and cameras to run toward the exits. The zoo's emergency alarm blared, finally signaling evacuation. But the paths were already slick with ash and falling debris. The eruption had only just begun, and its fury was far from spent. 5. The lava flow approaches. Molten lava poured down the mountain slopes like a river of fire, consuming everything below. The heat melted fences and scorched trees as it crept closer to the zoo's outer boundaries. Zookeepers tried desperately to move animals farther from the advancing fiery mass. Elephants trumpeted louder, panicked by the smell of burning wood and choking smoke. The ground beneath the lava cracked and split as the molten rock forced its way forward. Staff guided guests through thick ash, urging calm despite the growing sense of dread. The reptiles retreated into burrows, sensing the intense heat radiating from the flow. Monkeys clung tightly to branches, eyes wide with fear as their habitat was threatened. The flamingos huddled together, feathers covered in ash, unable to escape the spreading fire. Loud cracking sounds echoed as trees snapped and fell under the immense pressure of heat. Zookeepers knew there was little time left to save the animals from the inevitable blaze. Some tried to lead large mammals to safer enclosures further from the lava's path. Others secured smaller creatures in transport crates, hoping for rescue by emergency teams. The sky darkened further as ash continued to fall thickly, obscuring even the sun's glow. Visitors were evacuated in a chaotic rush, many looking back at the destruction in shock. Volcanic gases burned eyes and lungs, forcing many to cover their faces with cloth. The roar of flowing lava was drowned by screams and shouted orders throughout the zoo. Despite efforts, some areas were already lost beneath the fiery advance, turning black. The once vibrant zoo was rapidly becoming a graveyard swallowed by unstoppable fire. The moment felt apocalyptic, a tragic reminder of nature's raw and terrifying power. 6. The ashfall darkness. As lava consumed the lower grounds, the sky became a heavy blanket of ash and soot. Day turned to night in a matter of minutes, plunging the zoo into a surreal darkness. Ashfall thickened until visibility was almost zero, turning paths into slippery hazards. Animals reacted with increased panic, many banging against cages in frantic terror. Zookeepers shouted to each other, their voices barely audible through the dense haze. Some animals tried to dig or hide under debris to escape the suffocating ash clouds. The smell of burnt sulfur overwhelmed the senses, causing coughing and eye irritation. Water supplies became contaminated as ash settled on ponds and tanks throughout the park. Staff distributed masks and cloths to visitors, trying to prevent further respiratory harm. The zoo's loudspeakers urged everyone to evacuate immediately and move to safe zones. Electricity flickered and failed in places, leaving some enclosures in pitch-black silence. Every step was cautious and slow to avoid slips and falls on the uneven ash-coated ground. The darkness created by the ashfall was both physical and emotional, deepening despair. Fear grew with each passing moment as the eruption showed no signs of slowing down. Inside animal shelters, Caretakers stayed calm, speaking softly to soothe frightened creatures. Their dedication was a beacon of hope amid the overwhelming natural disaster. Even the strongest were tested by the relentless assault of ash and choking air. 7. The collapse of enclosures. The relentless eruption battered the zoo's structures, causing walls and roofs to give way. Heavy ash buildup collapsed roofs, trapping some animals beneath the broken timber. Fences warped and snapped under the stress of falling debris and earth tremors. Glass enclosures shattered, exposing sensitive creatures to the harsh volcanic environment. Elephants pushed against broken barriers, desperate to escape the destruction around them. Monkeys fled to remaining branches but were caught in falling ash and collapsing structures. The reptile house suffered severe damage, forcing keepers to relocate snakes urgently. Caretakers worked under dangerous conditions to rescue trapped animals from rubble. Loud crashes echoed through the zoo as structures continued to weaken and crumble. Emergency teams coordinated rescues, using heavy tools to clear debris carefully. Several animals were injured during the collapse, requiring immediate medical attention. The destruction forced some species into close proximity, increasing stress and aggression. The structural failure was faster than any rebuilding effort could hope to match. Visitors who had stayed behind were rushed out as soon as safe routes were cleared. Some lucky animals found refuge in underground shelters designed for emergencies. Others suffered in silence beneath fallen beams, hidden from human eyes and aid. The zoo's safety measures were overwhelmed by the magnitude of the volcanic forces. This collapse marked the deepest moment of crisis during the eruption's terrible course. It was a scene of chaos where survival depended on quick thinking and endless courage. 8. Rescue attempts. Amidst the chaos, zookeepers and emergency workers risked their lives moving through ash and debris to save. Teams worked in shifts, lifting fallen branches and rubble to reach trapped or injured animals. Portable cages and trucks were brought to transport creatures to temporary shelters. Some animals resisted rescue, frightened and disoriented by the smoke and chaos. Caretakers spoke soothingly, using familiar voices to calm panicked wildlife. Volunteers joined efforts, providing food, water and comfort to rescued animals. Doctors set up makeshift clinics near the zoo to treat burns injuries and respiratory problems. Communication with authorities was challenging due to disrupted lines and power outages. Despite obstacles, teams remained determined to save as many lives as possible. Bravery and teamwork became the defining features of the rescue operation's success. Heavy equipment cleared paths blocked by volcanic rocks and fallen trees. Many worked through the night, exhausted but driven by commitment and love for animals. Rescue boats stood ready for evacuation as nearby rivers swelled with volcanic runoff. Coordination between local government and wildlife organizations grew as the crisis escalated. Every moment counted as ash continued to fall thickly, complicating rescue attempts. Stories emerged of heroes pulling animals from the brink of death with bare hands. Some animals were relocated to zoos outside the danger zone, giving them a second chance. Others had to be euthanized due to injuries too severe for treatment. 9. The aftermath of destruction. When the volcano finally quieted, the zoo was unrecognizable, a landscape of ash and ruin. Only fragments of once thriving habitats remained beneath thick layers of volcanic debris. Paths and roads were buried, making access difficult for cleanup and recovery teams. Animals that survived were relocated to safer facilities as the area remained hazardous. The stench of sulfur and burnt vegetation lingered long after the eruption ceased. Many families mourned the loss of beloved animals that had become part of their lives. Memorials were set up to honor creatures lost in the disaster, acknowledging their place. The surrounding forest showed signs of damage but also resilience with new growth. Volcanologists monitored the volcano closely for signs of future activity and eruption. Government aid provided resources for both animal welfare and infrastructure rebuilding. Environmentalists advocated for protecting wildlife corridors to prevent similar tragedies. Efforts were made to educate the public on volcanic risks and disaster preparedness. The zoo's destruction became a symbol of nature's unpredictable and overwhelming power. Despite devastation, hope grew in the plans to revive and restore the beloved animal park. Community members volunteered for cleanup and rebuilding efforts with determination. The memory of the event remained a warning and a lesson for future generations. From the ashes, a story of loss, survival, and renewal began to take shape for the future. 10. The legacy of the buried zoo. The zoo's story became a powerful reminder of nature's strength and human vulnerability. Survivors told tales of bravery, sacrifice, and the heartbreak of losing cherished creatures. Plans were made to create a memorial garden at the site, honoring the lost animals. Educational programs emerged to teach children about volcanoes and animal conservation. Scientists used data from the eruption to improve warning systems and emergency plans. Artists created paintings and sculptures inspired by the zoo's rise and tragic fall. Community gatherings commemorated the event annually, reinforcing bonds and healing. The lessons learned influenced design standards for zoos near hazardous natural sites. Architects incorporated fireproof materials and emergency shelters in rebuilding efforts. Conservationists pushed for stronger protections of natural habitats surrounding zoos. The tragedy led to better cooperation between wildlife experts and disaster response teams. Technology was developed to track animal behavior for early warning signs of danger. The buried zoo's legacy became one of resilience, awareness, and respect for nature's power. It served as a reminder to prepare, protect, and coexist with the unpredictable Earth. 11. The impact on local communities. The eruption devastated not only the zoo but also nearby villages and farmland surrounding it. Homes were buried under layers of ash and lava, forcing thousands to flee their houses. Farmers lost crops that had taken months to grow, leaving many families without food. Roads and bridges were destroyed, isolating communities and delaying emergency aid. Schools closed as buildings were damaged, disrupting education for local children. Health clinics struggled with an influx of respiratory cases caused by ash inhalation. Many families sought refuge in temporary shelters set up by government and aid groups. The economic impact was severe, as tourism halted and many lost sources of income. Volunteers from neighboring towns arrived with supplies, showing solidarity and support. Psychologists and counselors helped residents cope with trauma from the sudden disaster. Communication lines were restored slowly, reconnecting isolated areas to the outside world. Local leaders coordinated relief efforts to ensure food, water, and medical supplies reached all. Rebuilding homes became a priority but was hindered by the ongoing volcanic risks. Crops were replanted in safer areas once ash had cleared, but recovery would take years. Some families chose to relocate permanently, fearing future eruptions and instability. Despite hardship, communities banded together, showing resilience and determination. Traditional festivals were postponed, but plans to revive cultural events brought hope. The disaster reshaped local life, reminding everyone of the fragile balance with nature. Lessons from the eruption inspired improved disaster preparedness and emergency planning. The spirit of recovery lives strong in the hearts of those who survived the volcano's wrath. 12. The fate of the zoo animals. Many animals perished in the eruption's initial blast or in the following fires and ashfall. Some were rescued and transported to other zoos or sanctuaries where they received care. Veterinarians worked tirelessly to treat burns, respiratory problems, and injuries sustained. A few rare species were lost forever, their extinction hastened by this catastrophic event. Survivors faced psychological stress, struggling to adapt to new environments far from home. Efforts were made to replicate natural habitats to ease their transition and promote healing. Animal behaviorists studied changes in the survivors, documenting trauma-related responses. Zoo staff formed bonds with animals during rescue, strengthening their commitment to care. Public donations helped fund the rehabilitation and rehoming of displaced wildlife. Awareness campaigns highlighted the need for protecting vulnerable species from disasters. The tragedy exposed weaknesses in emergency planning for captive animal welfare. Future designs of zoos incorporated safe zones and evacuation plans for such emergencies. The loss of beloved animals deeply affected the staff who had cared for them daily. Memorial services were held honoring the creatures whose lives were tragically cut short. Stories of animal bravery and loyalty became part of the community's healing process. 13. Scientific studies. After the eruption, volcanologists descended on the region to analyze the eruption's causes and effects closely. Seismic data was collected to understand the mountain's warning signs and eruption triggers. Samples of ash and lava were studied to reveal the volcano's unique geological makeup. Scientists examined the impact on local ecosystems, including plant and animal life. Research teams mapped the changed landscape, noting new lava fields and altered waterways. The zoo's destruction provided case studies on the vulnerability of human structures to lava. Ecologists observed how the forest began regenerating in the months following the eruption. Data helped refine predictive models for future eruptions to improve early warning systems. Collaborations between universities and government agencies increased to share findings. Studies focused on the long-term environmental recovery and soil restoration processes. Research highlighted the importance of biodiversity conservation amid natural disasters. Experts proposed changes to zoning laws and building codes near active volcanic areas. The eruption was documented extensively with photographs, videos, and scientific reports. Scientists engaged local communities in citizen science projects for monitoring volcanic activity. Workshops educated residents on reading geological signs and preparing for emergencies. The data gathered improved evacuation protocols tailored to specific volcanic hazards. 14. Environmental impact of the eruption. The eruption dramatically altered the local environment, destroying habitats and landscapes. Ash blanketed forests and fields, suffocating plants and contaminating water sources. Lava flows reshaped valleys, creating new landforms but also destroying existing ecosystems. Wildlife populations suffered severe losses, both from the eruption and habitat destruction. Aquatic life in nearby rivers was affected by changes in water temperature and chemistry. The volcanic ash initially poisoned soils but eventually enriched them with minerals over time. New pioneer plants began colonizing the barren areas, starting ecological succession. Bird migration patterns shifted as food sources and nesting sites were temporarily lost. The forest's recovery depended on rainfall patterns and seed dispersal from surrounding areas. Invasive species posed a threat during the fragile period of environmental regeneration. Environmental agencies monitored air quality to protect human and animal health post-eruption. The altered landscape attracted researchers studying natural processes of destruction and renewal. Efforts were made to protect surviving species and restore critical wildlife corridors. Some endangered species were given priority in habitat restoration and protection programs. Community groups participated in reforestation and environmental cleanup activities. The eruption highlighted the complex interactions between geology and living ecosystems. 15. Emotional toll on caretakers and staff. The zoo staff experienced intense emotional trauma witnessing their animals suffer and perish. Many had formed deep bonds with the creatures they cared for over years and decades. Feelings of guilt and helplessness haunted those unable to save every animal from harm. Counseling and psychological support were provided to help staff cope with grief and loss. Some workers took extended leave to process the tragedy and avoid burnout. Others became advocates for improved disaster preparedness in zoos worldwide. Memorial services allowed the staff to honor lost animals and find closure collectively. The experience strengthened the resolve of many caretakers to protect wildlife better. Teams bonded through shared hardship, creating a community of support and understanding. Veterinarians and keepers shared stories of bravery and compassion during rescue attempts. The disaster prompted reflection on the emotional challenges of working in animal care. It highlighted the need for mental health resources in professions dealing with trauma. Some staff pursued training in trauma-informed care to assist colleagues and volunteers. The tragedy deepened commitment to animal welfare and conservation missions. Personal accounts were shared in journals and documentaries raising awareness of these issues. The emotional toll was a reminder of the human side behind every conservation effort. 16. Rebuilding the zoo. Plans to rebuild the zoo began with a focus on safety, sustainability, and innovation. Architects designed structures resistant to volcanic ash and seismic activity. New enclosures incorporated shelters and escape routes for emergency evacuations. Green spaces were planned to blend natural habitats with visitor accessibility. Renewable energy sources were included to minimize environmental impact and costs. Improved water management systems were installed to handle ash and debris fallout. Animal welfare was prioritized with enhanced veterinary clinics and quarantine facilities. Community input shaped the design to reflect local culture and environmental values. Education centers were built to teach visitors about volcanoes and wildlife conservation. Technology was integrated for real-time monitoring of volcanic and animal activity. Staff training programs were updated to include emergency response and disaster drills. Funding was secured through government grants, donations, and international partnerships. Construction faced challenges from ongoing volcanic activity and weather conditions. Efforts were made to minimize disruption to nearby communities during rebuilding. The project aimed to create a model for disaster-resilient wildlife parks globally. 17. The role of media coverage. Media outlets covered the eruption extensively, bringing global attention to the disaster. Live broadcasts showed dramatic images of ash clouds, lava flows, and evacuation scenes. Journalists interviewed survivors, caretakers, and scientists to share multiple perspectives. Social media amplified eyewitness accounts and calls for aid, spreading rapidly worldwide. News stories highlighted the bravery of rescue teams and volunteers working tirelessly. Coverage raised awareness of the risks faced by zoos near active volcanic regions. Fundraising campaigns launched globally to support animal rescue and zoo rebuilding. Documentaries and articles examine the science behind volcanic eruptions and their impact. Critics called for better disaster preparedness protocols in wildlife conservation efforts. Some reports explored the emotional toll on staff and communities affected by the eruption. Photojournalists captured haunting images that became symbols of loss and hope. Media attention helped mobilize resources and international cooperation for recovery. Coverage also sparked debates about human interaction with dangerous natural landscapes. The zoo's story inspired educational content to promote environmental responsibility. Public interest pressured authorities to improve monitoring and emergency response systems. Media outlets collaborated with scientists to provide accurate information during the crisis. The eruption became one of the most widely covered natural disasters of the year. Stories from the event reached audiences who had never before considered volcanic risks. The role of the media was crucial in shaping public understanding and support. Ultimately, coverage ensured the zoo's tragedy was not forgotten and lessons were shared. 18. Community healing and support after the eruption. The local community faced the long road to healing and rebuilding. Support groups met regularly to share experiences and provide emotional comfort. Religious leaders held services offering hope and solidarity to those in mourning. Fundraisers and charity events were organized to assist affected families and staff. Schools incorporated disaster education into curricula to prepare children for future events. Community art projects commemorated the disaster while fostering collective resilience. Counselors worked with children who had witnessed the eruption's terrifying effects. Neighborhood gatherings celebrated small milestones in recovery and reconstruction. Volunteers coordinated cleanup drives to restore parks, trails, and public spaces. Local businesses reopened gradually, adapting to changed economic conditions. Stories of survival and kindness became a source of inspiration for healing hearts. Community centers provided safe spaces for gathering, learning, and mutual aid. Efforts were made to include displaced families in planning for the area's future. Cultural traditions were preserved and adapted to reflect lessons learned from disaster. Collaboration between residents and officials improved disaster response readiness. The community's strength lay in unity and a shared commitment to rebuild together. Healing was ongoing but marked by resilience and a renewed connection to the land. Memorial ceremonies honored those lost and celebrated the perseverance of survivors. Through support and hope, the community transformed tragedy into renewed purpose. The eruption became a defining chapter of collective memory and communal growth. 19. Lessons for future preparedness. The zoo's destruction underscored the importance of disaster preparedness in vulnerable areas. Emergency plans now include detailed evacuation routes for animals and visitors alike. Early warning systems have been improved to detect volcanic activity more accurately. Staff receive regular training on crisis management and rapid response techniques. Collaboration with local governments ensures coordinated action during natural disasters. Infrastructure upgrades focus on resilience against ashfall, lava, and seismic shaking. Animal enclosures are designed with safe zones to protect inhabitants during emergencies. Communication protocols ensure timely alerts to staff, visitors, and emergency services. Stockpiles of emergency supplies are maintained for both humans and animals on site. Drills and simulations are conducted frequently to test and refine response capabilities. Information campaigns educate the public on volcanic risks and safety measures. Partnerships with scientific organizations keep zoos informed about geological hazards. Lessons learned have influenced policies for zoos located near other natural hazards. Funding for disaster preparedness is now a priority in wildlife conservation budgets. Technological advancements help monitor animal behavior as an early warning system. Community involvement in planning strengthens resilience and local emergency support. Protocols are continuously reviewed and updated based on evolving knowledge and experience. These measures aim to prevent tragedies like the buried zoo from recurring in the future. Preparedness is seen as essential to protecting both wildlife and human lives in danger zones. The zoo's experience serves as a powerful case study for disaster readiness worldwide. 20. Hope rising from the ashes. Despite immense loss, the community and zoo staff embraced hope for a brighter future. Rebuilding efforts symbolized resilience, determination, and respect for the natural world. New conservation initiatives aim to protect wildlife both inside and outside the zoo. Education programs inspired younger generations to become stewards of the environment. Partnerships between scientists, caretakers, and locals fostered collaborative progress. Restoration of natural habitats was prioritized alongside the zoo's physical reconstruction. Innovative technology helped balance visitor experience with animal welfare and safety. Volunteers played a key role in planting trees, cleaning debris, and supporting animals. Fundraising campaigns continued to bring in resources for ongoing recovery projects. The memory of the disaster fueled commitment to coexist peacefully with nature's power. Community pride grew as the zoo reopened, showcasing resilience and new beginnings. Visitors returned, eager to learn about volcanoes and conservation in this unique setting. The buried zoo's story became one of survival, renewal, and a deepened respect for life. It reminded all who heard it that even in tragedy, hope can flourish and inspire change. The ashes gave way to new growth, both in nature and in human spirit and compassion. This legacy of hope continues to guide efforts protecting wildlife in volcanic regions. Through unity and learning, the community transformed devastation into opportunity. The volcano that buried a zoo ultimately gave birth to a stronger, wiser future. It is a story that will be told for generations as a testament to resilience and care. In rising from the ashes, both nature and humanity found a renewed path forward. After the eruption, the zoo lay buried under thick ash and molten lava's destructive flow. The sounds of animals and visitors were replaced by silence and sorrow across the grounds. Rescue workers searched desperately for survivors among debris and collapsed enclosures. Some animals were saved, bringing hope to a community devastated by the disaster's force. The event became a stark reminder of nature's power and its sudden, uncontrollable fury. Like this video and subscribe for more true stories that move and inspire you deeply. Share your thoughts and feelings in the comments below to join the conversation. Thanks for watching and being part of this journey through one of nature's fiercest moments.